3 years ago, a baby crawled into his office and into his heart. Now, that same baby has grown into a little girl with a dangerous amount of emotional intelligence and genius. Song Jae-seok was a ruthless Korean billionaire, a man who could shatter contracts and make entire industries tremble. But when it came to one woman, the mother of his chosen daughter, he was completely helpless. "You better hurry, Daddy," Little Blossom said one day, serious as ever. "Or, do you want Mummy to go on that date with the other man?" Song Jae-seok sat straighter in his chair. "What date? What other man?" Blossom sighed deeply, shaking her head in pity. "You really don't know anything, do you, Daddy?" And just like that, Song Jae-seok realized he would need his little angel's help once again to win the heart of the woman who already captured his. Before we go any further, this is LifeTale Stories, where unexpected encounters change lives and quiet moments become destiny. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and settle in as we dive into Song Jae-seok and Angela's love story, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Song Jae-seok stared at the papers spread across his desk. The words "official adoption filing" sat at the top of the page in bold print. He had signed contracts worth billions without his pulse changing even once. He had dismantled entire corporations with a single phone call. He had watched men twice his age sweat in front of him and felt nothing. But this made his heart somersault and take leaps. It had been 3 years since a baby had crawled into his private office and changed the entire direction of his life.
Blossom Ernie Carter, his daughter.
Not by blood, by something far stronger.
Choice.
If he signed these, Blossom would legally be his. No one could ever question that again. But why did his heart tremble? Was it hesitation or doubt?
No.
It was because of Angela Carter, that tough as nails and lovely woman. He feared that she would say no to him adopting Blossom and put him at arm's length like she always did. Well, one good thing was that over the years, she wasn't as reserved towards him as she was in the past. A soft knock on his office door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said without lifting his head. The door opened quietly. "Good afternoon, Daddy." His head snapped up. Blossom stepped inside his office in her navy blue school uniform, her tiny backpack slipping off one shoulder, her hair neatly braided with at the ends. 3.5 years old. And she was already walking into his office like she owned the place. His expression softened instantly. "Come here," he said, holding out his arms. She ran to him and climbed into his lap without hesitation, wrapping her small arms around his neck. He hugged her back, resting his chin on the top of her head. "How was school?" he asked. "Boring," she replied seriously. "But I know something that's more fun," she added. "Oh, really?" Jae-seok's brows lifted. "Tell me, I'm curious." Blossom looked at him as she said, "Mummy's date looks fun. She'll play dress up." Song Jae-seok froze. "Date?" "Yes," Blossom said casually. "Mummy is going on a date with a strange man." Something sharp twisted in his chest. "A date," he repeated slowly.
Yes.
"And it's a second date." The air in the room changed. His arms tightened around her just a little. "A second date?" Song Jae-seok was left dumbfounded. He could only repeat the words as he struggled to process this new information. Blossom nodded. "Yes. You really shouldn't have let her into that meeting when I told you so." His brows furrowed. "What meeting?" he asked, his voice low. "Who is this man?" Just then, his door opened again. "Sir," his CFO said carefully, stepping in. "It's time for the meeting." "On my way," Jae-seok said, not looking away from Blossom. "We'll continue this talk when the meeting is over." Song Jae-seok lifted her into his arms as he stood up and carried her out of the office. His mind was no longer on adoption papers, but on a certain word: date. Song Jae-seok adjusted Blossom higher in his arms as the glass doors to the executive meeting room slid open. Every head inside turned. 3 years ago, this sight would have caused chaos.
Now,
no one even flinched. In the business world, it wasn't a secret that he was sponsoring a child. And yes, he brought her to his meetings. Jae-seok even rearranged some meeting schedules around her after school hours so she could attend. His department heads merely straightened in their seats, nodded respectfully, and went back to their tablets like it was perfectly normal for the most feared billionaire in Seoul to walk into a strategic investment meeting with a toddler on his hip. "Good afternoon, sir." "Good afternoon, Chairman," they said, while some waved and smiled at Blossom. Jae-seok's eyes were already scanning the room as he walked towards the head of the table. And then he saw her, Angela Carter. She sat towards the end of the long conference table, her posture straight, hair neatly tied back, wearing a cream blouse and a fitted black blazer that made her look every bit the professional she had worked so hard to become. 1.5 years ago, she had studied a 3-month course and secured an internship in his company. And now, she had been promoted to become the top 5 in her department. And she did all without his influence. Song Jae-seok's eyes drifted to the man beside Angela, who leaned slightly toward her and whispered something. Angela laughed lightly, and it wasn't a polite laugh, it was real. Something in Jae-seok's chest snapped. His jaw tightened, and his steps slowed. Blossom shifted in his arms and followed his line of sight. "Don't worry," she murmured into his ear. "That not him." Relief flooded his whole body at Blossom's words as he continued his march to his chair. As he sat down, he placed Blossom on his laps and nodded for the meeting to begin. Throughout the meeting, Song Jae-seok's mind was distracted with different thoughts. His eyes constantly shifted towards Angela. He couldn't wait for the meeting to be over so he could get the information he needed. "Send the full documentation to my office," Jae-seok said after some time. "I'll review the details later." Then, the meeting ended shortly after, and he carried Blossom out of the room without another word. Back at his office, he looked at his daughter, who was seated on his table, his brows drawn together with all seriousness. "Give me the details," he said. Blossom's lips pressed together. "What will you give me in return?" Jae-seok's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you bargaining with me? Right now?" Blossom nodded. "Yes, because you didn't listen to me. I couldn't just ask your mom on a date out of the blue. She would think it's weird," and Jae-seok swallowed his remaining words. And besides, about 4 months ago, he had seen Angela look at a picture from her past. It was the picture of Blossom's biological father. Jae-seok assumed Angela still carried feelings for the man, so he had stepped back quietly. "Fine." Jae-seok gave in. "I'll get you a big bowl of ice cream," he said dryly. "Is that all?" Blossom asked. Jae-seok's jaw dropped at her words. "Isn't that enough?" He looked at Blossom and wondered from whom she got the wisdom to broker a beneficial deal. Maybe letting her inside his meetings wasn't such a good idea. "You drive a hard bargain, sweetie." "Fine. What do you want?" "Playtime," she answered. "Makeup."
No cleaning.
2 hours. "But that's too much." Jae-seok gasped. "I didn't dress up, you know," she said. "Also, it will be in Mummy's house." Song Jae-seok's lips widened at the chance. "Deal," he said, and they shook on it. Song Jae-seok sat in the middle of a plush pink rug in Angela Carter's home, his eyes closed. 1 year ago, she had made the decision to move out of his guest home, and he had run out of reasons to keep her there. She wouldn't even agree to move into his main house when he suggested it. His daughter, Blossom, may think he was weak and powerless when it came to his feelings for Angela, but it was actually Angela who kept drawing the line and putting the distance. The woman would hardly accept his gifts if they weren't for Blossom. He already knew he couldn't rush her, but now she was going on dates? Dates? Since when? Jae-seok huffed and shifted his butt on the plush rug. Damn it, he thought. He shouldn't have allowed her to move out at all. "Stay still." Blossom's voice pulled him from his thoughts as he opened his eyes. The pink color of her room almost blinded him. "I thought you already did my lips," he murmured as Blossom rubbed his lips with something. "Yes, but you need blue glitter." "Glitter?" Jae-seok's heart pounded, hoping silently that it would wash easily. He glanced at Tool in Blossom's hand. "Isn't that eyeshadow? That's supposed to go on the eyes, sweetie." "Yeah, but like you said, we should always expire." "Expire?" His brow arched. "Oh, you mean experiment." Well, but not on my face, sweetie. Now, tell me, who is the man? It's Mike from Fairy Scary. Fairy? Jae-seok muttered, his mind working quickly to understand her. Is it Fairy Light Company? Blossom nodded as she focused on her task, applying some powder to his nose. Fairy Light Company. He remembered them. They had proposed a partnership for the production of a new line of toys few months back. Jae-seok had declined their offer simply because Blossom found their toys to be a bit scary. But if he approached her, Jae-seok said, his voice low, doesn't that mean he might be using her? I don't think so, Blossom answered. He looks at Mummy almost the same way you look at her. The words landed like a blade. His throat tightened and he swallowed hard. How do I look at her? He asked quietly. Blossom stepped back from him, admiring her work on his face. The same way I look at ice cream. I want it every time, but I can't have it. Jae-seok's jaw dropped at her words. Blossom. Angela's voice rang from the kitchen. Dinner time. Okay. Blossom answered. Time for a picture, Daddy. Jae-seok nodded as he stood to his feet. His bones cracked after staying in that low position for a long time. He gasped as he looked at his face. Thank God for a good face wash, he thought as he eyed the dramatic lines of blush and blue glitters across his face. Smile, Daddy. Jae-seok did as Blossom directed, and then they both walked out of her room. Blossom went to the living room while he went to the restroom. Jae-seok stepped into the hallway after long minutes of scrubbing his face. His ears twitched as he heard Angela talking on the phone. Next week at the diner? Okay, I'll make time. He froze at the words, his blood turning to ice, and she turned to see him standing, a small smile on her lips. You still have a little color around the nose, Angela said. Yay, he nodded slowly. It's eyeshadow with glitter. Angela chuckled as she tucked her phone away and stepped into the living room. Jae-seok followed her. Dinner passed in a strange, careful silence. The three of them sat around Angela's small dining table. Blossom swung her legs beneath her chair, humming softly as she stabbed peas with her fork like they had personally offended her. Jae-seok's eyes kept drifting to Angela, watching her silently as she ate. After dinner, his heart sat heavy in his chest as he carried Blossom to her room and put her to sleep. He stepped out to the kitchen and found Angela doing the dishes. Without saying anything, he joined her, helping her dry the plates after she had rinsed them. Angela gave him a smile, and they continued silently. How are you doing? Jae-seok broke the silence, his voice cracking as he awkwardly tried to start a conversation. Anything new or any upcoming plans? Not really, Angela replied. Jae-seok looked at her, and his eyes narrowed. At that point, he noticed something. She looked tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. Something twisted in his chest. Are you okay? He asked quietly. She startled slightly. Yes. You look exhausted. Angela hesitated, then smiled faintly. It's nothing. Right, he nodded once. She still didn't want to open up. Didn't she trust him? After they were done, Jae-seok cleaned his hands on a napkin as he watched Angela arrange things in silence. The silence between them threatened to choke him till he couldn't breathe anymore. I'll take my leave, he said stiffly. Thank you for dinner. Angela nodded with a polite smile. You're welcome. At that moment, Jae-seok caught sight Blossom's head shooting out from around the corner of the hallway. Her tiny brows furrowed as she shook her head slowly in disappointment. Then, she slipped away. Jae-seok's face fell as he stepped away from the house and into the night. It was as though Blossom was scolding him, telling him that he had missed a good chance. But he couldn't really do anything if Angela didn't fully trust him. By the way, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing our LifeTale stories family from around the world. Back at his home office, he glanced through the files that were sent to his computer. The preliminary checks on Michael Evans of Fairy Light Company showed nothing shady so far, his CFO said through the phone. Jae-seok had called him late at night and requested for a background check. Actually, he had an outstanding reputation, his CFO continued. Multiple awards, pleasant feedback on his work, and he's well-liked among peers. Jae-seok's jaw clenched. Don't praise the man. He snapped, his hand tightening on his computer mouse because his CFO was right. Michael Evans seemed to be a legit man. Is there something else you wanted, sir? No, that's all. Jae-seok ended the call immediately, still seething in anger. The next morning, Jae-seok wasn't in a better mood. He snapped at his assistant or others at work. He just couldn't focus on his work. As he took a stroll outside his company's building, he saw her through the cafe window. Angela sat alone at a corner table, her phone clenched in her hand, her shoulders trembling as silent tears slid down her face. Something inside his chest cracked. He crossed the street without thinking and pushed the door open. The bell above it chimed softly. "Angela," he said sharply. She flinched and looked up. "Jae-seok." He dropped into the chair across from her. "What happened?" She shook her head quickly. "It's nothing." He leaned forward, his voice low, almost begging. "Don't lie to me, please." Angela's lips trembled as she swallowed hard. It's Blossom's paternal grandparents. His blood went cold. "What about them?" "It's just so ridiculous. They found out that you're sponsoring Blossom," she whispered. "Suddenly, they're claiming paternity rights, that I didn't inform them of the pregnancy. They are also saying that Blossom inherited her late father's debt." Rage detonated in his chest. "That's insane." Angela nodded. "I know. The loan sharks found out about it and want to use it as leverage because they think I was his wife," she continued shakily. "We were never married. I think the grandparents forged some marriage documents and now the loan sharks are threatening to take Blossom if I don't pay up." Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped her phone. "I've been gathering documents to prove otherwise. There was Noah left behind when he died. It's just that." Angela took a deep breath before she continued. "Everything is getting overwhelming, and I'm scared," she whispered. Something dark snapped inside Jae-seok. He lowered his voice. "I won't allow anyone to take my daughter from me." Angela's head jerked up. "Your daughter?" "I should have done this a long time ago," he said fiercely.
I'm officially adopting Anye.
"She's mine. No one else's." Angela stared in shock, her heart swelling with something deeper than joy and relief. "Jae-seok," she started, not sure what to say. "And you," he added quietly. "You're mine too if you will have me?" Her breath hitched. She stared at him, stunned. "I don't know when, but I've fallen deeply for you," he continued. "More than I know how to explain." Angela's voice cracked as she shook her head softly. "It's because of Blossom. You're confusing kindness for—" "No," he cut in firmly. "This isn't about Blossom." He leaned closer. "This is about you. I swear, you shine, Angela. Your laugh, your strength, your will. Just by being yourself, you teach Blossom a lot of values. I even learned so much from you. You've captivated Angela." His voice dropped as he continued. "You crawled into my heart the same way your daughter crawled into my office." A tear slipped down Angela's cheek as she listened intently. "I love Blossom," he said fiercely. "But damn it, Angela. I know I love you too." The air between them thickened. Her eyes dropped to his lips and Jae-seok leaned in slowly. Their lips were a breath apart then. Her phone buzzed violently on the table. They both froze. Angela grabbed it and her face drained of color. "They sent the address," she whispered. "The grandparents want a physical meeting with me alone." Jae-seok's jaw hardened and he took her phone gently. He quickly sent the address and phone number to his phone number, then deleted the message from Angela's phone. He paused as another message caught his eye, then he deleted that one too. "I'm handling this," he said firmly, returning her phone. "But they want me, not you." He cut in before she could talk. "They want to exploit my connection with Blossom. I'll give them that." He turned to look at Angela directly in her eyes. "I won't let them touch you or Blossom." He glanced at her lips once before standing to his feet. "I'll call you when it's handled." Then he walked out, leaving her sitting alone in the cafe. As he left, Angela stared at the broad-shouldered, handsome and fierce man that had become her daughter's protector. And now hers. He liked her. No, he had used the word love. Her heart swelled at the thought. Since the beginning of his connection with Blossom, she never let herself believe it could be possible. She never dared to dream that he could ever look at her in a romantic way. But his confession had changed things. It had given her the permission to hope. Permission she never knew she needed. Later that evening, Angela sat stiffly at the back of the Jae-seok's car as she picked up Blossom from her preschool. Before he left, Jae-seok had insisted on her using it.
It was for protection, he said.
She stepped out of the car just as Blossom came running through the gate, her tiny backpack bouncing behind her. "Mummy!" Blossom cried happily. Angela knelt and caught her in her arms. "Hey, baby," she said softly. "Did you have a good day?" Blossom nodded.
Yes.
"We painted a dinosaur. Daddy would have liked it." "I see," Angela said with a smile. Angela was used to it now. Used to Blossom referring to Jae-seok as her dad. At first, she tried to stop it, but seeing them together, the way he took responsibility and protected them had softened her heart. She couldn't force her daughter to call him something else. Calling him dad just came naturally to Blossom. Their connection from the beginning was instant and fierce. Angela carried Blossom inside the car and tucked her into her car seat safely. "Daddy didn't come today," Blossom said quietly as the driver started the car. Angela gave a small smile. "Yes, something came up at work." Blossom tilted her head. "Is it what's been disturbing you?" Angela froze. "What do you mean?" "You've been making sad faces at your phone for a while." Angela let out a shaky breath. "Yeah." He went to handle it. "Okay," Blossom said and started talking about her day. Angela listened. Her daughter was so smart and very observant. It reminded she of the man you gave her this gift. The one that left this world so abruptly. He was a good man in his own way. But now, an even better man had been sent to them. It was night time, and the house felt too quiet. Angela checked her phone again, still nothing from Jae-seok.
She paced.
Then sat. Then stood again. Her chest felt heavy with dread. She hoped nothing bad had happened. A knock suddenly echoed through the house. Her heart leaped, and she rushed to the door and pulled it open. "Jae-seok," she stopped in her tracks.
No.
It was Mike. He stood there in a long coat, holding a small bouquet of flowers, his expression uncertain. "Oh," Angela whispered. Just then footsteps echoed behind Angela as a tiny voice rang out, "Dad, oh." The disappointment was clear as a shiny day in Blossom's tone. "It's you," she said flatly. Mike chuckled awkwardly and crouched slightly. "Hi, little miss. These are for you." Blossom stared at the flowers, then looked at her mother. Angela nodded. "You can collect them." Blossom stiffly took the flowers, her lips curved into a pout. "Say thank you, Blossom," Angela urged. "Thank you," Blossom said, "but my daddy gives me the bestest flowers," she added quickly, then rushed back into the house. Angela's face burned. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "She didn't mean to." Mike laughed as he stood. "No, it's okay." "She speaks very well," he commented. "Yes, she started talking at an early age," Angela said, then stepped out, closing the door behind her. "You didn't show up for our date," he said gently. Angela's eyes widened. "Was it today?" she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Mike. You should have texted me." "I did," he said quietly. "You didn't respond." "Oh," Angela said as she glanced at her phone. There was nothing. Her breath caught as she recalled Jae-seok angling her phone when he held it earlier. "Don't tell me he deleted it," she thought. Angela looked up at Mike, who smiled at her. "Your heart isn't available, is it?" Angela opened her mouth, but no words came out. He smiled faintly. "It's okay," he said. "You're a lovely woman and deserve to be with a great man. It's too bad I was a bit late." "Yeah," she drawled, not denying anything. Mike took a step back and waved. "Goodbye, Angela. I'll see you around." She watched him walk away, then closed the door slowly. A laugh escaped Angela's lips as she realized the truth that had been staring at her for months. She loved Jae-seok. She was in love with him. That was why the first date felt awkward. She shook her head as she whispered to herself, You're so foolish, Angela. You should have been braver from the beginning. The sound of light receding footsteps brought Angela out of her thoughts. Blossom? Angela called as she walked into the house. Why aren't you asleep yet? Across the city, Song Jae-seok stood in a dim warehouse. Black-clad guards lined the walls. Two men knelt on the concrete floor, bruised and trembling, the loan sharks. Across from them, Blossom's grandparents sat in metal chairs, hands bound loosely in their laps. Unharmed, but terrified. Always respect the elderly, he thought of his rule. But these ones had dared to shove their greed towards what was his. Jae-seok stepped forward slowly. His expression was calm. Do you know why I parade Blossom everywhere I go? He asked quietly. No one answered. Well, other than the fact that I love her, he continued. It's so that no one would ever dare dream of touching her. He stopped in front of the grandparents. And yet, he said softly, here you are. They swallowed hard. Foolishness or bravery? He asked. Which is it? She isn't yours, the grandfather muttered weakly. The air went cold. Jae-seok smiled. It was not a nice smile. Say that again. I dare you. Silence. He turned to the kneeling men. You leveraged a dead man's debts against a child, he said calmly, and threatened a hardworking, innocent woman. You should be glad you're only getting a slap on the wrist. Jae-seok pulled a checkbook from his coat pocket, ripped out a blank check, and tossed it onto the floor. This clears every debt tied to Blossom's biological father, he said. Every interest payment. Every hidden clause. The men stared at it in disbelief. He turned back to the grandparents. You will sign legal surrender papers, he said quietly. You will relinquish all claims and make sure you never appear in front of any of them again. And if we don't, the grandmother whispered, the child is the only part remaining of our son. You should have thought of that before you played this dirty game. Don't begin to act like you care now. If you break our deal, I'll come for everything that is tied to your name. Trust me, I won't be this merciful. They nodded frantically in understanding. Jae-seok turned and walked away. His guards moved in. He stepped out into the cold night air. Everything was settled. Blossom was safe. The grandparents were neutralized. Finally, the threat was over. Early the next morning, Jae-seok arrived at Angela's home to bring her the good news. Tea's been resolved, he said as soon as he locked the door behind him. The grandparents will leaving the country today. Angela's eyes watered, her hands clasped before her as her shoulders sagged in relief. Oh my gosh, she gasped. Thank you, thank. She ran to Jae-seok, her arms going over his waist as she hugged him tightly. Jae-seok stood stunned, his eyes widening at her actions. His heart pounded as her lovely scent enveloped him. Thank you so much, she said as she pulled away from him. You're welcome, he stuttered, still shocked at what happened. Daddy, I'm ready, Blossom called, interrupting him. Let's go. Jae-seok glanced at Blossom, then at Angela. I'll drop her off. Angela gave him a shy smile. And I'll get ready for work. Yes. He nodded, still in a daze. I'll see you at work. Come on, Dad, Blossom whined, pulling at his hand. Early birds remember. Angela laughed as she waved them goodbye. The car door closed behind Jae-seok after he belted Blossom into her car seat. The air felt lighter. The sun was shining brighter. Everything just felt so good and great. What is it? He asked as he looked at Blossom, who wasn't wearing a smile. Mr. Mike was here last night. Her words brought him back to reality very quickly. What? He also gave me flowers, Blossom added. He did what? Don't worry. They're not as pretty as the ones you give me.
And I told him that.
Good. You did very good, Jae-seok nodded. But I saw Mom searching for a new outfit. I think it's for the date. Song Jae-seok blinked. He thought he had made some progress. He thought that. I did try to stop it, Blossom continued, but I'm a kid. What I can do is very limited. Blossom looked at him with seriousness. You need to do the work, Daddy. Try harder. I don't want a new daddy. And you won't get a new one. I'll handle it, Song Jae-seok said, his voice firm with resolve as the car zoomed towards her school. Blossom was right. It was his duty to win over Angela's heart. He'd be damned if he ever let another man take her. As soon as Jae-seok arrived at the office after dropping Blossom off at school, he dialed in for Angela to come in. He was pacing across his office when a knock sounded. "You called for me." Angela stepped inside his office and closed the door behind her. He looked at her, his eyes wide. "Damn this," he cursed. "Excuse me?" Angela was taken back at his words. "I can't do this,"
he said.
Angela's brow furrowed in confusion. "I can't see you with another man," Jae-seok continued as he stepped closer to her. "Give me a chance, Angela. I want you to see me, all of me. I will do my best to prove that I'm the man for you. For you and Blossom." Angela looked into his eyes. "What are you saying?" "Don't go on that date. Please." His voice broke at the last word. He felt so pathetic and completely at her mercy. Angela's lips spread into a smile, a soft chuckle escaping her lips. The next thing Angela did was amazing and shocking to Jae-seok. Her hands went over his neck, and she pulled him down and kissed him deeply. Immediately, Jae-seok's arms went over her waist. When she pulled away, he looked at her, stunned. "I already turned Mike away," Angela said, her voice filled with laughter. "I guess Blossom didn't tell you that part, did she?" Jae-seok let out a scoff of disbelief as his eyes widened in surprise. "That sneaky little girl." Angela laughed. "Yes, but she's ours." Song Jae-seok's heart clenched at her words. "Yes," he said as he pulled her in for another kiss, "she's ours." 7 months later, Jae-seok knelt on the living room rug, massaging the swollen feet of his pregnant wife. "I could use another oil and give it another rub," he muttered lovingly. "No, that's enough," Angela replied with a smile. "It's time for Blossom to come indoors." "All right, I'll get her." Jae-seok stood to his feet and kissed Angela on the lips before leaving for the front yard. He paused at the living door, his eyes on the wedding picture that hung steady in the middle of the room. The wedding had been small, private, and perfect. Blossom wore a tiny white dress and held the rings with terrifying seriousness. The photographer captured it all, and the memories were forever stored in his heart and digital cloud. As Jae-seok stepped into the front yard, he froze at the sight before him. 2 boys around the age of 5 stood with Blossom near the garden fence that divided his compound from the neighbors. One of them handed her a candy before waving at her and leaving. The other boy whispered something that made her laugh. Then, the second boy kissed her on the cheek. Jae-seok's soul left his body. What the hell? Jae-seok watched as the second boy waved and ran back to his home. Blossom skipped toward him happily. "Daddy." "What was that?" he gasped as she got closer.
"What?"
"I have admirers," she said proudly. "You are just 4. You shouldn't even know that word." He couldn't believe his eyes. His precious little angel. "Don't worry, Daddy. You're still my number 1, she said sweetly and slipped into the house. "And I'll be the only guy in your life," he muttered, "at least until you're 30. Song Jae-seok glanced at the fence. Those boys were the children of his stuffy neighbor, Mrs. Kim. How dare they do that to his precious daughter's cheek? "I think I'll have to build a tall, ironclad fence," he said to himself. But how could a 4-year-old know about admirers and how the world worked? No way. Was this what they meant about kids growing up too fast? "Blossom, wait a minute," he called as he walked inside the house to join his beautiful family.
The end.
If you enjoyed this story, leave a heart in the comments so we know you stayed with us to the end. Like and subscribe for more LifeTale stories. Your support and presence means much more to us than you think. Thank you very much.